this is Dr. Menije. Thank you for joining me for another episode. Today, I will be talking to you about 3 of my favorite self-help books that I highly recommend you read during the quarantine. At this point, people are responding to the quarantine in so many different ways. Some of us are feeling overproductive, getting things done, fixing things around our house, and some of us are feeling underproductive, taking things a little bit more slowly, having need for more rest. And the truth is, they're both okay, they're both valid. Whether you are underproductive or overproductive during this time, I know there can always be time for some good books. And I want to share with you 3 of my favorite self-help books that should be in everybody's library. So let's get started. The first book is by Lori Gottlieb. Maybe You Should Talk to Someone is the name of the book. This is a book written by a therapist about therapy. I know there are so many wonderful movies out there that has depicted the therapy sessions. There's Goodwill Hunting with Robin Williams that break our hearts. And yet, there are also some movies that don't give justice to how therapy really works. And this book is absolutely my favorite and to go if you want to know what it's like to be in therapy. And if you've already been in therapy, this book can really normalize and validate the wonderful experience you had. As I said, this book is written by the author about her experience in being in therapy, in addition to 4 of her clients who are receiving therapy from her. And what's wonderful about these 5 people is that they come from different walks of lives and they have such different needs and issues that bring them to therapy. But you see that at the end, therapy is about dealing with life. And the author talks about it, that life happens. And therapy is that place where you face your demons and you work things out. And another quote that I love from the author is that therapy is about accountability, and you need to be curious about yourself. You need to be open to look at things a little differently through this experience and do things in between the therapy sessions. So this is my to-go book whenever you want to understand what it's like to be in therapy and the way that it can really change your life. The second book I like to share with you, and I hope it makes it to your library, is by Brené Brown. The name of the book is Gifts of Imperfection. For those of you that know me, I love Brené Brown. So I could have not done this conversation without recommending a book by her. I have few of her books, and the reason that I'm recommending Gifts of Imperfections are 2 reasons. One, this is the first book of Brené Brown I read, and I read it 3 times by now. There's highlights in here throughout the book. And the second reason I want to recommend this book, because it personally and professionally taught me one of the most important things in my life, which is knowing my worth and knowing my enoughness. She talks about shame, courage, vulnerability, need for belonging, but most importantly, she really brings light into the fear we all have, fear of not being good enough. We all have the fear, am I smart enough? Am I talented enough? Am I lovable enough? Do I deserve to be here? Do I belong here? The imposter syndrome. And there's all sorts of different shame talk we have in our head, that inner dialogue that puts us down, that highlights all our imperfections and flaws. And she talks about the difference between shame and guilt here, which is again one of my favorite things. She talks about the difference and explains that guilt is a feeling we have when we know we did something bad. And shame is a feeling we experience when we think we are bad. And there's a big difference between guilt and shame. You're not a bad person for making mistakes. And yet, but we do make bad choices. And those are just actions. Those are not who we are. And she talks about the difference between shame and guilt. Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, absolutely my favorite, highly recommended. The third book I want to share with you for your library is by Rachel Hollis, and it says, Girl, Stop Apologizing. Here's the thing. This book builds on the messages that I first learned from Gifts of Imperfection, and I wanted to recommend this book because it really reminds me that you can't just do the work on yourself by reading one book. You can do the work on yourself by going to therapy once in your life, or even like 5 sessions. Yeah, maybe you might be having a small problem and therapy can maybe help you deal with something in a short term. But realistically speaking, an authentic, real change and real growth is continuous. So that's one of the reasons I really want to recommend this book, because you need to continue to work on that inner perfectionism that can get in the way from you being your true self. This author, Rachel Hollis, talks about our fear of disappointing people, fear of letting them down, fear of rejection. And I love it because in her book she talks about excuses that we need to let go to be our true self, such as, what will they think? It's been done before. I'm not enough to succeed. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, it's very important for me to talk to people about their underlying thoughts, their core beliefs, the excuses that's getting in the way. And I love that she brings attention to that. And there's also conversation about the behaviors you need to make change. That's another big part of therapy for me, because the way you think affects the way you act. And so in order to change, you not only have to challenge and reframe your thinking, but also take a look at some of your actions and figure out what opposite actions might be best for you. So the book is Girl Stop Apologizing. I also want to comment, I know it says girl on the cover, and it may seem like this book is better suited for women, and that's fair. It may resonate with some of the female audience, female readers, but at the same time, I do want to highlight that the book really talks about a human experience we have, which is our fear of disappointing other people and our fear of letting them down. As a therapist, I talked often about how we're wired for social connection, we are wired for belonging, but we also have to do it with limits. Unfortunately, I see that when people care so much about people around them, they put their needs last. They make sure other people are taken care of before they take care of themselves. They make sure to not say certain things, assert certain things, or set certain boundaries because they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. And that's where the problem lies. That's where your unhappiness, anger, resentment comes from. So this book is really helpful in that sense. Don't let the girl distract you. I think we all can learn to stop apologizing a little bit and make sure to only apologize when it's warranted. So here are 3 of my favorite books. I'm going to share them with you one more time, and you will see it in the comments below as well. Laura Gottlieb, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. Brené Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection. And Rachel Hollis, Girl Stop Apologizing. These are 3 of my favorite self-help books that I highly recommend that you check them out during the quarantine. No matter how you're responding to the quarantine, make sure there's some time for good self-help books. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, so you'll be notified of my latest episode. We can also connect through Facebook or Instagram. And I would love to hear in the comments below if you have checked out these books or if you have any other recommendations. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.